King's Quest: Mask of Eternity. The eternal black sheep, and to some, a black eye to the King's Quest franchise, and the final nail in the coffin of one of gaming's most iconic adventure game series. It marks the departure from the old style of point-and-click adventure gaming to the new technology of 3D gaming. Instead of moving from screen to screen, there is now a fully rendered world to explore, and instead of solving puzzles to progress, the emphasis is placed more on combat and action. Upon playing the demo of the much-anticipated King's Quest VIII, it left a world of gamers collectively saying, "What the hell is this?"
Well then, what was it exactly? I mean, we've been playing King's Quest games for over 10 years now, so we know a King's Quest game when we see one. What would spur such a fundamental shift? I bet some other company bought the rights to the King's Quest franchise, slapped the name on their action-adventure game just to make a quick buck. I bet Roberta Williams wasn't even involved.
As a matter of fact, Mask of Eternity not only involved Roberta Williams, she once again was spearheading this project with ferocious intensity. She was adamant about bringing not just King's Quest, but Sierra into the whole new generation and exposing a whole new audience to the lore and characters. While it is true that Sierra was bought out during development and Roberta did lose quite a bit of creative control, she was still proud enough of it to call it her own and release it.
Mask of Eternity is a game that's set in the King's Quest world, but it's not necessarily King's Quest.
Not indeed. The game has only a few loose ties to the game series, that being a token appearance of who is supposed to be King Graham, only different, and the first level of being set in Daventry, only different.
Oh, who am I kidding? This game has nothing to do with King's Quest. You wanna know my guess? I think Sierra wanted to get away from the more antiquated point-and-click style of gameplay and get onto something fresher, newer, bolder. So they just slapped the King's Quest name on it to market it.
We knew we needed to do something really drastic, not only to King's Quest, but to the adventure game genre in general.
This is not King's Quest, not even close.
That gripe aside, beyond being a bizarrely acted, slow-paced action-adventure game with a generic storyline, it's not that bad. Not as bad as people make it out to be. Many of us are just angry that it was touted as a King's Quest game, and it's just not. We felt lied to, tricked.
But what exactly did we get?
Mask of Eternity has a fairly simple premise. There exists a MacGuffin somewhere that keeps the whole world in balance, but someone with vague evil intentions breaks said MacGuffin into 5 smaller MacGuffins, which are then spread across the land to collect. Sounding familiar? Everyone in Daventry is turned to stone save for our new buddy Connor here, who just couldn't say no to picking up something shiny falling from the sky. You set about exploring Daventry, and I admit to being a little excited to see the world of Daventry.
In 3D.
Except this isn't Daventry. We've seen Daventry before. We know what Daventry looks like. We've seen the interior of Daventry Castle. We know what the interior of Castle Daventry looks like. We know what King Graham sounds like.
I'm King Graham of Daventry, and I'm on a journey to find the wizard Mordak's island.
We must begin construction immediately.
And this, for the love of God, is not King Graham of God. Why am I playing this game? Seriously. Why would they build up a lore made canonical since 1984 just to throw it away now?
Lore gripes aside, it's Connor's duty to explore not Daventry and find out just what the hell is going on.
30-foot horizontal leap. Fantasy game indeed. This must be the fast travel system.
After bounding all over the landscape and attempting to free the petrified populace in your own way,
Promise to do all I can to save you from further torment.
you finally figure out your goal.
The Mask of Eternity has suffered a terrible fate. 'Twas destroyed by an evil entity. Now chaos reigns, and the vile spirits who rule the elements are free to cause mayhem o'er the land.
One thing I will give to this game thus far is that it still follows the most basic adventure game tropes of meeting up with all the world's remaining populace and solving all of their problems for them. It is also unforgiving in the manner in which you find the items you need to progress. Careful exploration is often key to figuring out what exactly you need and for what purpose.
I cannot reach that axe from here.
The land is broken up into distinct areas, each deserving their own distinct load times. You see, back when hard drives had less capacity than modern cell phones, and CD-ROM drives spun with less velocity than a record player, playing the games directly from the CD nor copying the entire contents over to the hard drive was just not realistic. So, for every level transition, you have to wait as the last level is wiped clean from the hard drive, and then wait as the new one is copied over. And then wait as the level loads.
If I could claim the load times were worth it, I would.
So anyway, there's the land of Daventry, and they even let you into Castle Daventry's throne room. Wow! Remember how it looked throughout the entire series? Chandeliers, colorful rugs, the magic mirror, the long hallways, and oh god damn it! How did they screw this up? This is a world they've created, for God's sake. Why after things...
Well, soon it won't matter, because as soon as we leave this area, Daventry, King Graham, and anything else King's Quest related will never be mentioned again. I guess the old school tokenism is over and done with.
You soon find yourself in the land of the dead, and not the cool kind either. No, this land of the dead is nothing but a square mile of brown mazes, stupid enemies, jumping puzzles, and running. Lots and lots of running. The only interesting bit is an area with 4 portals, each with puzzles that you must solve to get the land of the dead back on its feet again. They may as well have just called this backtracking the game, because nothing is in close proximity to anything else. A quarter of your time is spent fighting and solving puzzles, and the remaining 3/4 is simply running from one end of the godforsaken map to the other. And with this as your scenery, you can imagine how enjoyable this was for an hour.
After a few hours of running around with barely an aim or goal in mind, you finally do make your way out of the dimension of death, still 4 mass pieces short, and into the swamp lands. Finally,
Where am I now?
a little color. It's puke green and brown, but it's better than just brown.
In the swamplands, things are even slower going, since you can't fast travel jump knee-deep in swamp ooze.
That's not swamp ooze! That's swamp slime!
Regardless, it's slow going as you befriend some wisps, eavesdrop on the local wildlife, and start scintillating conversation with trees.
But only for the gift of a gold piece.
Verily, a tree has no use for gold.
He is more noble than deserves.
Your ultimate goal, you learn, is that there's an evil witch somewhere around here which has poisoned the waters of the marsh and has somehow come into possession of the next mask piece that you need.
Die, Toad!
Not me, witch. You.
What did you say?
After dealing with her and getting a vision of your ultimate enemy in your stew pot for reasons never explained, you are told that you are off to the whimsical realm of the gnome.
With my last breath, I curse Zoidberg!
Oh goody! The realm of the gnomes must be a happy place at last. The little people singing and dancing through colored lighted hallways. And no, wait, it's just another bunch of brown corridors again, sparsely populated as always.
Feeling lied to yet again, we prowl around the dark caverns of the gnomes only to find that there were only 4 gnomes in the entire realm, and all are too busy chipping away at the walls to acknowledge you. Oh, sure, the 2 shopkeepers here are willing to talk to you, but only after performing a ritualistic dance to keep the game from crashing while it does so.
Mayhap.
Here, though, you are involved in what it looks like to be a pretty epic battle with a huge black dragon. But as with most things in this game, walking up to it and waving your sword around is enough to kill it and name you savior of the realm. And you guys couldn't do this because...
Thou art truly the begetter and manifester of the light.
You zip out finally from the realm of the gnomes, sans mask piece, as you enter what they call the Barren Region.
The Barren Region is a pretty good descriptor for just about any level in this game thus far, so I find it odd that the only one actually named Barren is the level that's the most populated. Go figure.
In this fiery region, you're treated yet again to more trial and error jumping puzzles, a race of cave people who have lost their MacGuffin. Well, not much else save for a basilisk who terrorizes the land by staying firmly planted in one spot. So, how exactly is the destruction of the mask responsible for all of this? So the entire level becomes a series of fetch, deliver, and exchange quests for the right weapon to deal with the stationary basilisk, and finally dealing with it in an unnecessarily large display of bravado. Entering the inner sanctum of something or other, you find the next mask piece and rescue a frigid woman from her imprisonment.
I was going to make a Queen Isabella joke here, but then the depression set in that it very could have easily been Queen Isabella. It was just another character in this universe, just so easily tossed aside.
Speaking of ice, your next area is, predictably, the Frozen Reaches. The first area is neat enough as you meet the girl you rescued, evidently the Queen, who tells you of the new feud between them and the Birdmen next door since their leader was kidnapped. Care to guess what our next task might be? Yep.
Once again.
So, one ride on a laconic crystal dragon later, we must hunt around the biggest collection of nothing so far in the game to reach the keep of the insert hitherto aforementioned race of bad guys here and free Big Bird. But the plot, well, what little of it there is, thickens. The orcs are under the command of Lucrecio, the main villain who caused this whole mess to begin with. Well, sure as shooting, you remove what minimal threat there was, retrieve the mask piece, and set loose Big Bird.
After dispatching yet another fearsome beast which disintegrates into nothingness with no more than a wave of your hand, you finally find the entrance to End Game, the realm of the sun, the original resting place of the Mask of MacGuffin, Eternity.
This part of the game is the closest thing I had to a good time. You're put through a series of challenges a la Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Look, they have an invisible bridge and everything! The next puzzle continues this tradition with pushing a pillar 5 feet into the light.
Key to enlightenment.
Okay, well, the next one will surely... Oh, Jesus crap!
No. A sliding puzzle? A sliding puzzle? And oh my god, you have to push them around by yourself. In a game with controls this bad, you have to push them around by yourself.
After finally getting the last mask piece, and why it was sitting in a chest right next to its resting place when it was supposedly flung to the far corners of the earth, I don't know, you're allowed into the final chamber to reassemble the mask and confront Lucrecio.
Finally, we meet, mortal.
We find him quite invincible due to the never-explained powers that breaking the mask somehow bestowed upon him, and we can only really knock him around and assemble the mask as he regroups. What a lame villain. What a lame ending.
What a lame review.
Look, you guys already know my thoughts on this thing, but allow me a moment to advocate the devil here and explain something. If not for the fact that this was trying to pass itself off as one of my beloved King's Quest games, it would have been decent. A bit bland, but decent. The technology was on par with most of the 3D games coming out at the time, though it was still in its infancy, so that's not really saying a whole lot in its defense.
Long and short of it, Mask of Eternity. Just Mask of Eternity. Not King's Quest Mask of Eternity, not King's Quest VIII, God no, but as its own separate entity. It's not canon, it's not involved with the story, it just is. A fairly unremarkable 3D action-adventure game with the King's Quest logo slapped upon it. Nothing more. Well, that wasn't too bad, but at least I can finally close this chapter on my life. Sierra may have gone the way of the dodo, but their legacy lives on. So, let's end this retrospective on a high note, shall we? we'll see how the games have held up in the modern era and how they've survived through various remakes, retoolings, fan-made games, and things like that. Some good, some bad, but all noteworthy, and the result of a fierce but loyal fan base. Myself included. Except for Mask of Eternity. Fuck that game. Fuck it right in the ear. Unbelievable. This entire book of lore completely wasted on this stupid game. I mean, how could she possibly defend Mask of Eternity? She was so rabid on defending it, and yet this entire book, this is what? 500 pages of built-up King's Quest lore, and all of it ignored. Mask of Eternity was the perfect opportunity to take all the ideas built up in the King's Quest series and put them into 3D. Let players explore the land that they've been so familiar with for so long. You know, let them meet the characters. Now come to think of it, you know, there's King Graham is in there, sort of. Let's build a new silo. That's my cameo. Haha, it's a King's Quest game. I'm totally here. You know, where's Rosella? Where's Alexander? Where's anybody? Everything's just gone. It's like the nothing blew through Daventry and just swept everything up, and they had to start it. Maybe it's like some sort of like parallel dimension Daventry, you know? Granted, the stories of King's Quest, I mean, take you all over, I guess, the world, so to speak. I mean, somewhere in here, there is actually a map of all the different lands. You know, there's the Land of the Green Isles, there's Serenia, there's Daventry, there's Ludor, there's Kalima, I think it was called. But still, I mean, even though you're going to a new place, you're, well, I don't know, am I being too hard on it? I don't know, it just seems like such a wasted opportunity. All this lore, just, from Roberta Williams of all people. Roberta, I mean, I know she lost control of this project a little, you know, not too long after its completion, but she was a major part of the writing team, and Mark Siebert, for crying out loud. You know, Mark Siebert was actually helped produce this motherfucking game. He knows the lore as well as anybody. He worked on it for so long. Why did the music guy work on programming a game, for crying out loud? But whatever, man of many talents. Oh, Mask of Eternity, you disappoint me. Just useless.